the meeting?
Yes,
All
she
right.
is.
Thank you. Okay, now Senator Wahab, please go ahead.
Definitely. No. Well, one, I just really appreciate you guys making time for me. I know that you guys are a very active group of folks. And one of the priorities for my office is really, especially the district office, is really to engage with the district. So I just want to be very clear that we tend to, every weekend that I'm back in the district, we are touring facilities, talking to constituents, and kind of learning a little bit about what are some other issue areas that we could potentially help on, whether it's bills currently that somebody else has introduced that we are being informed of, or I'm not going to lie, I'm already thinking about the bills I want to do next year, and already talking. I'm just going to flag it for you guys because I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm getting all the folks kind of lined up. A lot of our constituents have been complaining to me, especially the senior population mostly, that they are able to get their teeth removed and covered by Medi-Cal, but no implants done after. So they can remove, like, let's say 12 of your teeth, no problem, but nothing as the alternative solution to having teeth. So I have already been talking to the California Dental Association. Obviously, their biggest concern is getting reimbursed by the state. I think that no matter how healthy you are, if you cannot chew food or bite a corn on the cob type of vibe, it's not worth having that procedure. A lot of people feel that way. So that is one of my biggest issues that are coming up. And yeah, so that's what we are looking into. We're trying to see what is covered, what is not covered, and just kind of working on that. And granted, that's not a bill I'm carrying this year, but I have told everybody for the last 3 months that is something I want to do. It's just, I think, a lot more moving parts when you talk about healthcare. And so, we're starting a lot earlier than I think people expect for next year's bills as well. But that is one of the big ideas that I do have for next year. But beyond that, our district office, for the most part, our district director is named Nergis. She was also my campaign manager. If some of you guys may have met her, may remember her. She is actively sending our field reps out to meetings. She is actively working to talk to community members. There's a lot of cities that we represent, a lot of the cities that are looking for grants, looking for funding, looking for anything like that. We have been signing letters of support, as well as for nonprofits and much more. So we are a very proactive district office. We want to make sure that we represent the district to the fullest. And then on the state side, we have Ruskell, who's our scheduler. He's also going to be putting in notes as you guys ask questions potentially about our bills. We Freshman senators typically start at the new year, whereas the let's say more senior senators get to start on their bills really in fall, right after session ends. They may take a little bit of a break in September, and then they start their new bills. We didn't get that privilege just because we started so late, and our race was a close to call race, so even our training was pushed back into January. So it kind of reduces our ability a little bit, hiring people, and so much more. It's a lot more. It's like setting up an office. You start from scratch. Plus, we have to, hotel and a whole different lifestyle change, if you will. Plus, you're meeting 39 of your colleagues that you have no idea about where they sit politically, what regions they represent. Some are very rural, that places we probably would never travel to. Others more, mixed regions and so forth. So we definitely want to engage with our colleagues, meet them, set up those one-on-ones. I also sit on 8 committees, which is more than any other freshman for the most part. I chair public safety, which is a very critical committee, just because of the fact that it could do a lot of help to help lives, and it could also do a lot of damage to individuals, right, with the bills that pass through there. So I take that very seriously. We work on a lot of bills, and I think that I've also bent over backwards to help other people get their bills across with amendments. The feeling in the state, in the Capitol, which I agree and disagree with, is that they want absolutely zero felonies, zero types of enhancements, zero anything. And that's why, for example, the Assembly Public Safety Committee has been in the news a lot. And at the same time, I represent a district that does, significantly have a heart and want to make sure that, people who make a mistake can get back on their feet and so forth. But at the same time, I think we all believe in accountability. And so there's a fine line to balance there. And so I spend a lot of time in that committee and just working on that committee, let alone the other 7. And I spend a lot of time on other people's bills because some people are very punitive to the point where it's extremely harmful to, just regular folks that are caught in the crossfires of trying to be tough on crime, but it goes overboard. So we have been working a lot in that committee. And then I have my own package of bills that I'm very, very proud of, very excited. I'm carrying 2 for Santa Clara County. This is really around foster youth and data. This is also around making sure there's parental reunification for those that are interested in being, back with their family and so forth, and not making it an issue of poverty. Some people can't attend classes, things like that, but they still want to be in their children's lives, but they don't want to get fired from their job either. So we're trying to give discretion to judges a little bit more to assess cases individually. We are also carrying a bill for the city of San Jose, and this is for a public safety reform bill to allow those police departments that really are trying to get rid of the bad apples, make sure that they are taking care of the community, address the needs of the community, and being transparent to if they were to fire an officer for misconduct. Hayward and San Jose in particular had an officer who engaged in sexual misconduct. And when the city would fire the individual, they would like to make an announcement that we have fired this officer because of one of 8 reasons. Obviously, one is egregious use of force, one is sexual misconduct, things like that. And I want to be very clear, this is not right then and there when, rumors are out. This is after claim has been substantiated and investigated of that officer. The due process is there. So it just allows the cities to say, no, we are doing our job. We are holding people to a higher standard, especially when we are giving them our city sanctioned bullets. And also at the same time protecting our city and our reputation and our residents, right? So it's a very fair bill that has passed through committee and also the Senate floor with bipartisan support. A lot of the bills that I've pushed have been very much focused on, at least me, I genuinely try to get bipartisan support. And we have the very famous CAST bill that has become, all over the news, all around the world. And this is a very simple bill. It is primarily to ensure that discrimination based on caste is not tolerated in the state of California. Primarily under the UNRRA Act, which is the Civil Rights Act of California, as well as the Fair Employment and Housing. And I will say the large rhetoric on the opposition is that this does not exist. If it did not exist, 1,000 people wouldn't have shown up at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning to Sacramento, right, in person. And 1,000 plus more wouldn't be on the phones, waiting to give their testimony. So obviously it does exist. People are very split on the issue. There's a lot of fear mongering and incorrect rhetoric by the opposition. We actually have a team of lawyers, including from the Bay Area, including Stanford lawyers, including the Civil Rights Department, that have been working on language. And we are consistently trying to define the language to be very, very generalized in the sense of what this is really targeting. And this is, again, just trying to limit discrimination in the state of California. The reason why this bill is so important is because it is happening. It is a 3,000-year-old system, and other cities, states, and countries are looking right now to California to see that if California passes this, we potentially are able to pass it in other countries, including the UK, including New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and other states in this nation, as well as Congress members from other states have reached out stating that they are interested in carrying the bill at a federal level. But they would like to see this pass through the California Senate and Assembly and get signed in. So there are literally millions of people that are watching this because it does affect lives. And I think it affects lives in a positive way. Some of the rhetoric by the opposition is incorrect. They're making it seem that, nobody's going to be able to get a job. People are going to be profiled, things like that. And I always respond back saying, as a woman who's protected under civil rights, I have a job. All of us have been working, granted, there's always ways to improve things, but, it is to give us some legal recourse in discrimination based on our gender. So that is a bill I'm very proud of. Dr. Cornel West has spoken in support of it, the ACLU, Bend the Arc, Me Too, so many other groups have, California Labor Federation, and the Democratic Party of the state of California has actually already adopted this language in their bylaws, as well as Cisco, who has a legal lawsuit that's still in play right now. So there are a lot of tech organizations that have already adopted this language. So it is clearly something that is an issue and clearly something that people want to be proactive on. So I'm very proud of that. And then we have a handful of others, but I will say we have a Survivors Bill of Rights bill. This is a bill for sexual assault survivors to be able to get the resources they need after situations happen, as well as being informed of their case in a timely manner. One of the problems that I see in the criminal justice system is that there's a lot of time that passes by before anybody gets any closure, right? And so we're still trying to work on that, and it has passed public safety and it's moving forward. There's a lot of people interested in co-sponsoring. Me Too International has also co-sponsored that. And one final bill that has been sponsored by Me Too International and a lot of other groups as well is trying to, I would have preferred a complete elimination, but underage marriages. Underage marriages, California is one of the few states still that allow underage marriages. It's quite surprising. And we're talking about underage marriages outside of the context of legal marriages already, meaning emancipated youth or something like that. This is outside of that context. And there are groups, and it's not just the Bay Area. I will tell you there are many, many cases where it's usually women. I'm not saying that it's not inclusive of men, but it is usually young girls that are married in a religious ceremony. And because religion tends to be obviously for many people a very important part of their life and culture and so forth, that they believe that they have gone through all the paperwork to make this legal, and in their life and their families' lives and so forth, they are legally married in their minds. That is not the case. And after a little while, when the individual wants to divorce them, they may be left with children. They may be left with a significant amount of debt. They may be left completely abandoned and so forth. So there's a lot there that needs to be done to protect children, in my particular opinion. And I will say that it is not, when people talk about demographics, it literally spans religion and culture. And so we have had to take some amendments to that, but one of my goals, and I've said this very much often to you guys as well, is to protect the most vulnerable community members, women and children, seniors, immigrants, and so forth. So that is literally our bill package. We are very much working to do that, as well as housing. As you guys know, housing is very important. I am a little disappointed in two of my bills right now. Appropriations for my eviction database bill, because we have seen that people who are consistently evicting folks, they evict seniors, number one, and immigrants, number two, at a rate that is inconceivable. In the city of Hayward, we implemented this measure. It was very affordable, as well as the fact that it reduced our eviction rates in 12 months by double digits. Okay. So that percentage is quite high. And we know that people are struggling in the state of California with that. So we want to ensure that, again, our seniors on limited income are protected in some capacity. So appropriations made that a 2-year bill, meaning we have to come back next year with that bill. I'm going to try to be a positive thinker and say that we are going to make it better and work harder on it. But they made it a 2-year bill because they said the cost is too high. It is not high, but we have to take what we have to take. And then our second bill, which has also passed Senate Judiciary, is our reform to Costa-Hawkins, which is a housing bill. Costa-Hawkins is largely debated by a lot of people, but the part that we are touching is the 1995 language for multifamily complexes. It does not hit 4 units or less. So if you own a triplex, a duplex, a fourplex, a single family home, a condo, townhome, anything like that, this bill does not apply to you at all, nor did Costa-Hawkins to begin with. These are for multifamily giant complexes, basically, that we are trying to allow for individualized cities to select whether they want to update their legal binding of 1995 language and roll it into a little more modern. So for example, the city of Hayward has 1979, pre-1979 multifamily complexes are subject to rent control. With this change, every year, if the city, so after this bill passes, the city would decide to bring that 1979 and update it each year by 2 years. So let's say in 2024, that 1979 ban will move to 1981. Then it would move to 1983, right? So those developments in those years would be subject to rent control. Again, it would primarily be multifamily complexes. It is just an update. And I think all laws should be updated and revisited, because obviously we're almost 40 years out in some of these cases, right? So that is also moving forward. So a lot of our bills have been moving forward, some more easily than others, some more controversial than others, but for the most part, it is very much focused on trying to protect people and help people as much as possible. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have and see what you guys think.
Great, thank you so much, Senator. I think we have a few questions in the chat, and then also if others want to raise their hand, and then I'll call on you, you can ask directly. Let's start first with those hands raised. I see Tim.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator. Yeah, I found the caste-based discrimination bill very straightforward, and I was really surprised at how many of my Indian neighbors were very vocal about opposing it. Do you have a sense of why so many of our Southeast Asian Indians in Sunnyvale, for instance, are so adamantly opposed to it? They were citing all sorts of things to me, and I couldn't make sense of a lot of them.
That is the case even amongst all the other senators and assembly members. There is really no good argument against this bill. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of anything. I understand their fears of potentially being profiled, but the reality is that this caste-based discrimination is taking place, number one, right? Number two, it is the lower caste individuals. So their lowest caste is called Dalits, or formerly known as untouchables, right? They get the brunt of a lot of the negative feelings. For example, we had individuals share their stories of discrimination, of lack of promotion. But I'm going to share the couple stories that I've heard that I really just want people to understand what this looks like, because it's not visible to us. It is not something that you can say, oh, okay, because of skin color or gender or something like that. It is very nuanced. And it's really, really only practiced by those who partake in caste systems. It is, for example, an individual went to the Fremont City Council and spoke in support of the bill and shared a story with us that they are a doctor. Their wife is a caretaker. Their wife was caretaking at this home and drink from a cup of water. Individual that owns the home is related to the care. Are you that? And they're like, that cup is no.
Senator, we're having trouble hearing you. I think you're cutting in and out. We missed the story about the water.
Sorry, did you guys, where did I leave you guys off?
Can you start the whole story about the water, the cup of water?
So the family of the individual receiving the care removed the water cup and put it near the dog bowl outside and said the cup is no longer allowed in this home. And we are seeing stories where people have shared with us they are not allowed to pray in certain temples, that they are not allowed to rent from certain people, that even simple stories, for example, two well-off individuals came up to us and said they've asked their neighbors about tutors for their children. They will not allow that. They will not share information. It is to a point where you see it in a societal level that if they were to complain to police, it doesn't even make sense, right? But the more egregious things that are happening in the workplace and housing. You are seeing far more human trafficking. And this is something that I will tell you, I just visited a hospital in our district that said that human trafficking is something that they are now trying to train other emergency doctors and nurses to see, because it is young Asian women that they're looking for, as well as men for workforce, for more labor. And this is happening under our noses. Okay. So I did obviously strike a nerve. People are feeling a certain way. And when you try to balance the scales, and those with power and privilege never want to support it, right? So I do want to highlight that there's not a good enough reason to oppose this bill, right? And some people, I will say, although well-intentioned, are kind of falling prey to the fear mongering. There have been rumors out that holy books will be taken from places of prayer. There are going to be, this mass, surveillance on the population. That is not the case, and we all know that, right? So there are people that are living in fear, and honestly, the most vulnerable community members are what we need to protect. And this is balancing the scales of power. So I've heard all the arguments and excuses, but there has not been a legitimate reason to oppose this bill.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Steve Chesson.
Yeah, maybe this is a stupid question, but I mean, how does one even know if someone is a Dalit or not? I mean, I certainly couldn't tell by looking at somebody to know what caste they were. So how do the people in the community know what caste other people belong to?
Yeah, and that is something within those communities, similar to, for example, myself as an Afghan. If I, walk through a room, sometimes I'm easily able to spot another Afghan, and they may be lighter skinned than me. They may have green eyes. They may have blonde hair. And it's something within their own communities and systems, number one. But this bill is not about being able to identify which caste somebody belongs to. This is based on the perception and perceived potential for discrimination. So, for example, if we were to discriminate against somebody that was of a different age category, a protected class in age, right? Maybe we thought that this person was a lot older than they were, and they weren't, right? That, how does that get proven is in court. It has to be substantiated. It is not just everybody filing claims to file claims. There has to be some merit and some truth around the discrimination, right? So again, adding this just again allows people to, with real discrimination cases, to be able to explain it, number one. Number two, that there will be experts on this topic, as we have actually seen. If you ask Santa Clara County's district attorney's office, they have received a significant amount of claims in relation to caste-based discrimination. Many settle out of court, and it is harder to prove, just as discrimination in all categories is hard to prove, whether it's age, whether it's gender, whether it's race. So that is why, this is important. Again, it is something that needs to be addressed and has been kind of hidden right in front of us. So we are shining light, and some people also don't like the fact that light is shining on a dark part of, society.
Now, I support the bill. I was just curious, like the example you gave where the person was in that person's house, were invited to be in that person's house to take care. And then when they took that glass of water, then the owner of the house put the glass of water outside. I mean, like I said, I just don't know how one tells that somebody's a member of a particular caste or not. But I agree with you. Yeah, the discrimination does happen, and it does. And I agree. I do support your bill.
Thank you.
Like some forms of anti-Semitism, sometimes surnames can give away caste identity or regional identities from various countries. Accent, your hometown, biographical information like that can be used to identify people of the unfavored caste.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Margaret, I see you put some opportunities for advocacy on this bill in the chat. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that just quickly?
Yes, I'm partly forwarding something I received from someone else, but so I may not, I haven't verified for myself. I mean, Ms. Wahab can talk about what step the bill is at currently, but from what I understand, Assemblymember Ash Kalra has been under pressure to not support the bill. So if you know people who live in Ash Kalra's district in San Jose, please encourage them to call him to support the bill. And other Bay Area legislators who need to be pushed include Matt Haney in San Francisco and Diane Papin, who's up, I believe that's northern San Mateo County area, the assembly members there. So yeah, there's a simple script, and just encourage people to help push it through this cycle.
Great, thank you. Other questions for the senator?
And folks, I'm happy to answer any question you guys have.
There was some comments in the chat earlier about when you first were speaking about the dental issue and some legislation that you're thinking of proposing next year. There's good support for that. I see.
I think Martha wants to ask a question.
Yeah, just wondering, is there anything going on with gun control?
Actually, yes, there's actually a handful of legislation that has come out from my colleagues that support different efforts. So for example, and they come through public safety. So this is the part that, like I said, a lot of things come through public safety. One is stamping the bullets, which I will say there's different NRA chapters as well as groups that are strongly opposed to pretty much any measure. They have like about 5 people that speak in opposition every single time. There's another bill about, magazine capacity and storage, putting, as well as insurance, as well as a lot of things that we've actually seen kind of in the Bay Area or even locally. It has passed our public safety committee. We have tried our best to make sure that, we are doing our part. Moms Demand Action tend to be proponents of a lot of this effort, as well as Everytown USA / I always forget the orgs. I'm going to say the Brady campaign, but I may be completely wrong on that. But they have come in support. And so those have passed outside of our committee. I don't know necessarily when they're all going to hit the floor, the Senate floor, or if they were trapped in a different committee. So in the next 2 weeks, we have our House of Origin deadlines. Pretty much every bill will be heard on the floor. We will have meetings that go past midnight even to get all of these votes out, and hence why everyone is scattering, if you will. So there are some efforts there.
Okay, thank you. I see a question from Yagil Hertzberg.
Yes, it's a general question about Democrats. Democrats on state levels and federal level deliver better results, but they refuse to tell the voters about it. I asked Ro Khanna, why is that? And he said, voters are not interested in numbers. If you don't tell the voters, how would they vote Democrats? They think Republicans deliver better results. There are many who support the Democrats, but they vote Republican. The number one reason they say is jobs. The second, crime. If you tell them Democrats created twice as many jobs as Republicans since World War II, or if you tell them that crime in Republican, let's call them red states, the murder rate and rape rate is 23% higher than in Democratic state. We talk about budget. Every Republican administration left office with a higher budget deficit. Every Democratic administration left office with a lower deficit. If you don't tell them, why should they vote for you?
All right.
I will say, just to add to that, I 100% agree. I think that, obviously we don't have a lot of Republicans representing in the state level, at least not in the Senate side. There's a little bit more on the Assembly side. I think that a lot of the times it's how they feel about certain issues and having the data themselves. The honest truth is, comparing some of the data from California to other states, it's not something that a lot of senators do regularly. And oftentimes they, if they don't sit on one of the budget committees or the governors, for example, changing a budget or anything like that, I think a lot of people hesitate to misrepresent something. And the Republicans, honestly, the only thing they have right now, and I've seen this even on the floor, is they talk about their issue and kind of on their soapbox, but because they aren't able to really pass anything legitimate, they spend far more time talking and showing that they're doing something, but it's not actual any work.
Yeah, I mean, on the state level, I understand. I'm asking you on the federal level, just because I don't know who else I can ask.
Yeah.
I
think again, the messages, I hate to say it, but people try to keep it very simple and not get lost in the weeds, but also things are changing so rapidly that sometimes, again, it's just a fear of hesitation to not misrepresent something that is happening or has changed, or if it's not their bill or their priority, they may not have the latest numbers themselves, or their office may not have it.
Okay.
Thank you, Yagil. Other questions from the floor? Yes, Tim.
Senator, I bike a lot, as you can probably tell from my background. And I'm curious, do you bike and do you support the California safety stop bill, which I hope will come back in front of the Senate and hopefully make it past Gavin Newsom's signature, which has blocked it a few times?
I believe I supported the bill. I sit on one of the committees that I remember reading something like this. Number one, in Hayward, I've supported a lot of, the expansion of bike trails and a little bit more different opportunities to be able to utilize different forms of transit, including biking, right? And then as far as me biking, I have not biked in a little while. I'm not going to lie to you about that, right? I will say that primarily just because I'm thinking in Sacramento, I either want a scooter, to be honest with you, because it's so much more flat, and everything's just within a couple blocks of each other, right? So I will say, I think that there's a lot more people in Sacramento that's, use the scooter systems than biking. But biking I've enjoyed for a very long time growing up as well. So it is something that I actually enjoy.
Thank you. Yeah, I biked around Sacramento, and it's beautiful biking up there. The American River Trail is really nice too. Thank you.
Sorry.
Leah, did you have a question?
Yeah, actually, with respect to the dental issue, I hope they're talking about the medical fact that if people don't have teeth in their mouth, whether real or artificial, that it actually leads to considerable bone regression in the jaw. And that is a medical complication, never mind the fact that you have increased risk of aspiration and that kind of thing if you don't have some way of chewing your food. So I hope that aspect that there's been some medical consultation aspect in that by addressing that, you're preventing other problems, which are much more serious and costly.
Yes. So I fully support it. I wanted to carry it this year. I just don't think that we were ready yet to carry one of the healthcare bills, because healthcare, you have an army of people opposed to anything pretty much. And so we are very much interested in this. We would like for all of you guys, if you guys have any contacts throughout the state, organizations that focus on whether it's dental, whether it's senior care, whether it's anything like that, please put them in touch with us, because the way it works is that we introduce a bill. We need a significant amount of letters in other people's district that support these types of initiatives, right? At the end of the day, if you take a look at pretty much any of the bills, they revolve around money and who gets how much money from who to where to so forth, right? That's the sad reality of a lot of the policy making, a lot of the bills. And it's something that I'm very much disappointed in. But this is the system, right? Especially since I did, and we genuinely want to really build a coalition of people that support a lot of the bills that I carry that are largely focused just on regular people and their day-to-day issues, not necessarily, these random things that, I'm not going to disparage any other bill that I've seen, but there are some very questionable bills on if you are a senator or an assembly member, why waste your power and privilege on something that really doesn't matter to people, right? So as much as possible, we need to continue to build those coalitions around housing, around care. I will say the silver tsunami is very concerning to me, because we are not at all prepared for the wave of seniors retiring from a housing standpoint, from a healthcare standpoint, from any standpoint. And that's the honest reality. And the statistics out there is that by 2030, our senior homeless population will triple. Okay, just 2030. That's literally within 7 years. So that is deeply concerning. Those are our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and we need to do something about that. So very much focused on this effort as we move forward. So happy to help wherever I can too.
I'm going to jump in with a question since there are no hands raised right now. I see you're on the health committee, and I'm just wondering if there are any climate related bills that also have to be heard in the health committee because climate and health are so intertwined, or is it still kind of separate off to a different committee?
So the way it works is when you introduce a bill, it goes to the rules committee, and rules determines what other committee it will touch and in what order, right? So there is actually a bill by Senator Gonzalez that's very fascinating to me. She's from Long Beach, and her bill is about oil and about having these drill sites, and they're not like, they're called something else because they're a smaller drill site. I forget what they're called specifically. They're not necessarily on land, but they're not in the ocean either. They're like kind of in this weird middle ground, okay? And there's 28,000, okay, of them. And obviously, as they're, digging for oil, if you will, her bill basically would say that there is there's already a presumption that all the healthcare concerns of the people in her city of Long Beach, let alone in some of the neighboring cities, the healthcare concerns of cancer, asthma, so forth, are because of this. And so, of course, oil companies are opposed to this because, you know, they would have to pay the healthcare if this bill goes through and there's a lawsuit and somebody, you know, got asthma or cancer or some random health issue. This bill is one of the priority bills that people are targeting to kill. And I give kudos to Senator Gonzalez for bringing this forward and obviously trying to champion this. I actually don't know where it's going to go, but I know that that is one of the bills that kind of touches health as well as a number of other issues, you know, just because of the way it's written. So there are some bills that kind of do overlap in some ways, but we don't make the call. The Rules Committee does make that call.
Yeah. Great. Tim, another question.
Yeah, since you brought up more health and climate stuff, many of us in this area have been very interested in having bicycle education become a standard part of the school curriculum. Is that something that you could help with, Senator? Like ideally at the elementary, middle, and high school level, once kids start biking and doing it as a lifelong activity, that would greatly reduce traffic deaths as well as increase health. And then they could get exercise on the way to school as well. Is that in your space, or is that something that could address elsewhere?
That could potentially be in our space. I'll be honest with you, I have not pushed a education bill just yet. I think that there's two bills. I think Assemblymember Mark Berman has a bill similar to that to kind of train regarding computer science. And then Assemblymember Liz Ortega also has a bill regarding workforce education. So I think that it is very much possible. I would also like to see if it's in any other local jurisdiction, because that just helps the case. You know, if there's numbers, stats, is this a chapter in a book or is this a whole legitimate class? You know, it has to be kind of more vetted out in some local jurisdiction for us to be able to say it works well here. Let's implement it for the entire state of California. So that's kind of where it would be. But yes, I'd be happy to help wherever I can, whether that's even connecting with other groups. But I will say we are limited to roughly about 20 bills, and sometimes we're cut down even further because there's problems with bills. There's co-sponsors that, you know, renege on whatever commitment they made. So we had a solid more than 20 bills. We did have some hiccups. As I said, we started very early, or let's say it started actually very late. And so bills do get kind of whittled down as to what are going to be the priorities for that senator as well as those groups. If a bill is sponsored by somebody, for example, it does help with, you know, that org kind of picking up the slack as well, talking to other assembly members and senators and trying to get their buy-in as well. Because I will say, just as one person talking to all 39 senators of my colleagues, it takes a lot of time. And when you're on 8 committees, you really don't have time for the coffees and the lunches to be like, so these are my priorities. You literally will list out 3 priorities. That's your priorities. And the other folks and staff will try to prioritize the other bills that need a little bit love and attention. But as an individual senator, you usually try to stick to the 3, because if you ask for 15, you're never going to get those bills kind of like the buy-in from your colleagues, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to see the bicycling one move forward somehow, because it solves so many health issues and it solves so many safety issues, and it makes drivers much safer. We have so many traffic deaths happening. And if we get more people bicyclists tend not to kill anyone else, but car drivers are killing like 40,000 or so every year in the United States. That's a huge number of people. It's like 13 every year we're doing to ourselves, let alone the climate change. Also, we solve climate change as well. For transportation is the biggest source of climate change in California. And we have such great weather here. And
well, Tim, I'm gonna say this too. You know, public transit has been gutted in the funding. I'm sure you know you've been reading a little bit about that. A significant amount. It's not a little penny that has been cut. It's been like that. That was the one group that was, in my opinion, gutted completely. Right. There has been some revisions as of this latest budget report, but one of the things I also want to tell you guys is talk to your other elected officials, because I'm kind of on this bandwagon. I've actually led the charge in a lot of the informational hearings. Public transit needs to be consolidated. Okay, people don't want to say that because at the end of the day, jobs are at risk and so forth, right? But in the 9 Bay Area counties, Santa Clara County, Alameda County, every county that's surrounding the Bay Area, 9 Bay Area counties, there's over 30 public transit organizations. Okay, over 30. Why do we need that many? At the end of the day, and just from a Santa Clara perspective, our county, BART doesn't go that deep into our county. Let's be honest about that. It doesn't go to every stop. It doesn't hit every city, especially in my district, from Milpitas, Santa Clara, and Sunnyvale, does not touch it. We have AC Transit. They keep cutting lines. But yet, what is going on there? When we take a look at some of the other operators that are smaller, right? Let's say whether it's VTA or Muni in San Francisco, I can tell you, and I often speak very honestly about this, is that there's a problem with public transit as a whole, right? And people need to kind of actually, say, I hate to say it, I know it's a difficult conversation to have, but consolidation needs to be happening. And MTC, so your board of supervisors, they all sit, on MTC in some capacity, a handful of them at least. That conversation, that really tough conversation needs to be had, because public transit isn't cheaper than driving. It isn't faster than driving. It isn't more efficient than driving. It isn't anything more than driving, right? And that is why so many people revert back to owning a car, revert back to driving, and so much more, right? So we need a little bit more pressure, in my opinion, on MTC and just the efforts around public transit in the Bay Area. I've said this and people were a little surprised because, again, nobody wants to talk about it. Several other elected officials have slowly been coming up on this as well, including Senator Cortese, a little south of me, that represents San Jose. And we need to make sure public transit works for us. It's not just biking, because we also know people who aren't in the greatest shape or elderly or disabled or anything like that won't be able to do that either. So we need to have other modes of transportation that are more reliable, safer, cleaner, more efficient, and cheaper. And I'm one person that has stated that very publicly in informational hearings, but I think more and more people need to state that.
Actually, I'm with you. Yeah, our transit agencies need consolidation. I've been to other countries and they all work seamlessly together. And here it's crazy. And bicycles work really well with transit. They help extend it. Although there's one myth that people that are young or elderly or infirm can't bicycle. That's actually not quite true. In Holland, a lot of the people who can only walk still can bike a long ways. And I've had some friends who actually have been able to bike on tricycles or whatever that have no longer been able to walk around their neighborhood. So bicycling and tricycling actually serves infirm people actually quite well as a way to get some light exercise and get around without having to resort to motor vehicles. So something to think about.
100%. I'm just thinking of, like, for example, my father has vision problems and mobility problems. He will not be able to bike, right? So we just need to have all the options on the table. And I will say one thing that MTC keeps saying that I told them it's not a good enough answer. They stated that they can get the card that you can use it for all of the transportation agencies, and that will make it seamless to the end user. And I laughed and I said, but that is not seamless. That is kind of like painting a lipstick on a pig, and still you have a pig to kiss, right? So it's not realistic, and it's still not cheaper, and it's still not efficient. So I think that there's a lot of space there that needs to kind of be done. I will say the chair of transportation is, again, Senator Lena Gonzalez. I think she's trying to do great work, but we need a lot more of an aggressive push to say that some of their reasoning or their pushback is not good enough. The Bay Area folks really, really need to be able to have public transit that's reliable and goes longer than 12 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock or so forth. So that is definitely something I'm interested in.
Okay, great. We have one question in the chat from Colleen, and then Yagil has his hand raised, and I know we are very close to out of time. So Colleen's question is, are you involved with or knowledgeable about SB 252, California State Board of Pensions to divest investment in fossil fuels?
Yes, I did support it. I believe both times, one of the committees and then appropriations this past week. for the divestment. I will say that a lot of people are very concerned about their pensions. I'm getting a lot more letters in opposition of divestment. So I do just want to flag that on the floor vote, I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to stand on that. But it is one of the more controversial bills that are coming up because people are very concerned about it. I believe it's Senator Lena Gonzalez as well. The two areas she cares about a lot is transportation, because she's the chair of transportation. She has been mentored by Senator Jim Bell, who also was a little bit south of us prior to Senator Cortese. So we have a very good relationship. We do talk about the issues, but I will say that is one bill that I get letters on both sides of support and opposition. I think it needs to happen. I also just worry about touching people's pension. So I'm always a little bit more cautious about that too.
Okay, thank you. And Yagil, last question.
No, I just wanted to say about transportation. I'm taking Caltrain from Sunnyvale to San Francisco, and they don't offer Wi-Fi. So I cannot use my laptop on the way. I mean, how ridiculous can it be? We are the technology hub of the country.
You know what? And that's one of the things I will say to you that I agree. We're just not, I hate to say it like this, it's not good enough, right? The reasonings aren't good enough. I understand people are very concerned about their jobs, but people need to come to the table and say, how are we going to make this work? And also even how it's going to touch each other's system. We could literally build high-speed rail utilizing the current BART system, utilizing the current Muni and VTA and so forth, and seeing what we can do to make it faster, cheaper, cleaner, more mobile friendly, and so much more. But that takes a lot of brainstorming, and right now, I don't see the political courage from a lot of leaders to really take that on. I will say I think that unions will be opposed to it, obviously, because it is union jobs in a lot of these areas. I very much support labor, but at the same time, I'm also one of those people that believe in having the hard discussion before it becomes a real problem. And I already think we're at that point where it's a real problem.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Senator Wahab, for your time today and answering all of our questions and giving us an overview of your first 6 months in office. It's really been a great time for us, and happy to see. And I know that Rascal has tried to attach some documents. He added some links, but he's got some documents as well with some information about some of these bills, and we can send those out after.
Definitely. And I just want to say again, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the distinct honor of being able to serve this district. I want to serve to my fullest capacity and potential, but I definitely obviously want to share some of the insights with you guys, some of the things I'm learning, just even as a person who's always involved and still learning new things, and that we do need to build the coalition to kind of tackle some of the more difficult issues. And I'm not afraid to tackle some of the more difficult issues, as well as, even receiving a lot of the opposition I do tend to receive, including, for example, a recall effort on me within the first 4 months. So, just because of the CAS bill, we are still going to be pushing through. The work that I do and my office does and the staff does is really very much community service. So however we can serve you guys, we want to be of help. So thank you again for your time.